All right, he's one of my favorite guests, and it's a perfect time to get him. Marcus Thompson writes for The Athletic. He's the author of the book Golden, KD, and Dynasties. Really plugged in. It's the Warriors got a lot of good people covering them. I think Marcus does as good a job as anybody that covers a team in the country in any sport, and he is joining us. It's so funny because I watch a lot of Warriors basketball, and in my job I got to watch a lot of stuff. But I just got into a habit, for 10 years of watching the Warriors. And I made a comment. I'm like, man, when Steph is off the floor, this is pre Jimmy Butler. I'm like, this is a boring ass team. Like, this is a bad watch. And I said, I'd bring in Jimmy Butler just for energy and juice. He'll just get everybody all worked up. So, were you in, when you heard Jimmy was coming, were you in the it may not work camp, it'll work kind of camp, or it'll be sensational camp? Which
I
camp were
might
you
be in
in?
all three, to be honest with you. I might have been in all three. It was difficult. I will say this up front. I didn't expect this. I didn't
Yeah.
expect the one thing this underscores for me. I love Andrew Wiggins. I think Andrew Wiggins is a really good NBA player, especially who he's become with the Warriors.
Yeah.
He's like a testament to if you put him in a right situation, right? He'll be great for you. Like he probably shouldn't be the A1 of a franchise, right? But if you put him in a good
Yeah. Yeah.
situation, he's great. Like he's a great teammate, plays hard. Colin, there's a difference between an all-star
Yeah.
and a superstar. These things are
Yeah.
categorically different. And because of all the drama that was going down in Miami, and even how Miami was like a middling kind of team over these last couple of years, I forgot that Jimmy Butler is a superstar. That to me is the thing. Cognitively, if you said, yeah, you put another superstar next to Steph, like that's what he needs. But watching him with Jimmy, it reminds you, like, no, Jimmy is one of them ones. Like he's a bit of a sideshow sometimes, but like he's
Yeah.
one of those guys, and it's instant. And the crazy part is he doesn't even have to play well. He doesn't even have to
Yeah.
play well, and you could feel it.
He's not shooting
He's
well
he's
right
not
now.
even taking his shots. Jimmy lives mid range. He's going to the elbow and rising up. He's not doing any of that. He's just on the court, and by virtue of being Jimmy Butler on the court, he will punish you if you let him, and if you don't, then Steph will punish you. So like that's the thing. Like the moment he got there, you could feel the vibe change just by him being there. Like he shows up in his aloe sweatsuit at the Laker game. He doesn't even sit on the bench. None of the things you'd expect this dude to come in and be like, all right, I'm part of this thing. He just came in as Jimmy and it changed everything. And I was like, hey, yo, I didn't see that. Like I didn't see that happening in the way like it did.
Right. He's also, I've used the word, he's a very intentional player. Like possessions matter. He doesn't waste
Yes.
possessions. I always thought sometimes Wiggins could be a little bit of a floater. He would waste possessions. You weren't quite sure if he was on the floor. Jimmy's got more of a presence. He's more intentional. He gets to the free throw line. And it also underscores something, and I've seen this with LeBron, with Luka, is when you're on a treadmill to nowhere, this is a long season. And it's hard to get guys like Steph or LeBron fired up for an 8 seed, right?
Right.
You give them you give them I said this, it's like LeBron and Steph have a new buddy in the neighborhood they want to show off to. And they're just, I mean, Steph's averaging like 6 more points. He's only taking one
Yeah.
more shot. So I think in football, you got 8 home games. It's very urgent. It's hard for these guys who are at the mountaintop to get fired up for, a playing team. I feel like Steph is. This is one of these unintended benefits of making a trade with a great player. The great player drives to the arena ready to show off, ready to perform. And now the honeymoon, the new car smell may wear off, but there is something to be said about the fit. Hell, Kuminga's not playing. When you watch Butler, analytically there were questions if he'd fit. Do you think he's more valuable on offense or defense right
Right
now?
now, offense, definitely. I mean, by virtue of he's impacting one of the greatest offensive weapons in the history of sports in the way he is, right? Like you can see it. Steph is a different dude. Steph's a monster.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
He said it, and I didn't know it till I looked it up. The day they traded him, Steph took 36 shots, and then the next day he took 32. It was the first time in his career he taken 30 shots in back-to-back games. He'd never done that before. All and Jimmy hadn't even played yet. Just the fact that we got Jimmy now, let's turn up. So the fact that Jimmy has that impact on Steph, to me, brings that to it because you're right. Like the part that's so very viscerally clear is they just were not good before. I mean, they weren't it was boring. They got guys who just don't go into the paint. Jimmy's message now is like, hey, you see what they're doing to Steph? Just go into the paint. It's wide open. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you. Just throw it down to me in the paint. Like, I'm not doing anything else. I'm going to the rim. And you could see them saying, hey, that's kind of working. But without that, they're just
Yeah.
chucking threes. They aren't really very good. And it was just draining life out of Steph. So to me,
Yeah.
that part has been such a jolt. Like they're like a top five offensive defense with Jimmy, but they were bad offensively. Bad,
Yes.
bad,
And
and
boring.
bad and boring. Like it's a bad
Yeah.
combo, right? You don't want to be bad and boring.
Well, and the other thing is, you see this in baseball when you bring like a true ace to a staff, it allows everybody to
It's the
go
right
back in
spot.
the
Yep.
rotation one. Right, right. And this now allows. I always felt Kuminga was being kind of forced to be a two, and right now he's
Yeah.
he's a
Wiggins too,
three.
by the way.
He's
Yeah.
he's yeah, yeah. And so I think Kuminga. Now, do you think Kuminga will get pinched when he comes back? How many? I mean, what will
I
his
do
role
think
be?
I think he'll get pinched a little bit. And the difficulty is like, Steve's big on shooters, and obviously with Steph, you need space. So the thing that's
Yeah,
gonna be difficult for Kaminga is Jimmy Butler's playing a lot and Draymond is playing a lot. That's two dudes who do not shoot through. Draymond will take him, and he's shooting the best he's ever shot, like in a long time. But
yeah,
they're leaving him open, right? They're packing the paint, and they're like, Draymond, have at it. If you add Kaminga to the mix, that's three guys who the defense is like, yeah, we kind of don't care if you shoot it, and that's the problem with them. Like, you don't have enough shooters. Steph doesn't have room to work. You allow them to trap. So I think he's probably gonna come off the bench. They're gonna put him in that second unit, and he's got to go dominate that. And I think eventually they'll figure it out, but he's gonna have to shoot better. So I do think he gets pinched. The only reason why I think it'll work though is because they're just playing transition basketball. They're just running. They're just throwing it out, throwing it ahead. And like you said, Jimmy's the one guy who doesn't turn the ball over. So he's
yeah,
like being like sure about it. And Kaminga has a blueprint for how to play. Like just smart, clean, aggressive basketball. If he can do that, I think he'll be fine, but he's gonna have to shoot better. He's gonna have to shoot like 38% in order to justify being on the like with Jimmy, Draymond, and Kaminga. Like that's a lot of non-shooting to deal with Steph. So this is gonna be the issue. It's the last puzzle piece to fix. If it works, Colin, they might be the 4 seed or something. It's insane. They were
yeah, yeah.
dead. They
That's
were
exactly
dead.
right.
It was over. Like Steph is
Yeah,
doing like eulogies at the press conference, right? He's like, and all of a
yeah,
sudden they might be in top 4 or 5 seed.
yeah. I think teams like Houston can't
Yeah,
shoot. Memphis too young. Um, Oklahoma City is very deep, but those young players
still
in
got to
playoff
see it.
road games. I
Still got to
said,
see him. Yeah,
yeah, I said OKC. I would not want to face the Warriors. I'd have
they do
no
not.
interest in that. I mean, you got 400 some playoff games with Jimmy, Draymond, Steph. Like I got no interest. Chet Holmgren's good. Let's go see him in a big
Yeah,
road playoff game
that's
in the Bay
tough.
Area. Like not interested. So, it's funny. Jimmy always had this reputation. I mean, he's bounced around a little bit, that he can be difficult. I see him more as just intentional and intense. What is it like to cover him? What is he like shoot around? What is he like in games? What I mean, authentically, what's
It's
his
a trip, man.
personality?
He's the coolest guy in the world. Like it's so funny to get the reputation of a guy and then compare it to what you feel when you meet him, and it's just like it's hard to fathom the other guy. Now, I'm not an idiot, Colin. That other guy's there, right? The guy that'll cuss out the
Yeah,
entire team and the coach, right? Like in
yeah,
a practice, the guy that'll,
yeah,
go toe to toe with Pat Riley. Like that guy's clearly there. But he's very warm. He's good Jimmy right now. His spirits are high. He got an extra $58 million, which helps. I think about a lot of his issues are about getting the money he thinks he deserves. So like he's been
yeah.
great. Like, I kind of measure these things by who can you have a conversation with? Not like put a recorder in somebody's face, but who can you go and just have a conversation with? And Jimmy is a guy you can just go have a conversation with him. Now you hear about he doesn't fly sometimes with the team, or he doesn't stay in a hotel, right? He got his own crew, and I guess I just had this perception that Jimmy would be somebody that would be difficult. Man, oh, you want to talk to Jimmy Butler? Go talk about some dominoes. He'll talk your ear off about some dominoes, right? Because he cooked
Yeah.
Draymond apparently in dominoes. So, Volume Sports took an L when they went.
The um there were a lot of suggestions that KD, and I'm sure it happened. Matt Ishbia, the owner of the Suns, they're going to reboot this thing. There's absolutely a market for KD. Still a tremendous 27 a night player. I've always been a huge fan. Um, give me some insight here, Marcus. Were they rumors? Did the Warriors really try to navigate a deal? Like, what's true and what's just internet?
From what I was told and have been told even after the deadline is like Phoenix was shopping him. Like, hey, what can we get? And the Warriors were interested. Like Joe Lacob wanted a star. Like we know that. Like he want
Yeah.
there's a list of stars he wants, and KD was on the list, right? They were very interested in bringing him back. Depending on, somewhere probably in the middle. I heard it was just conversations, heard they had a deal. So usually this stuff is right somewhere in the middle, right? If KD says, I would love to come back, I think it would have happened. And KD made it clear he wasn't interested in going back down that road, and they backed
I
out.
get
Yeah.
it.
So no, I heard it was very real. From what I've been told, it was very real. The Warriors were interested, and Phoenix was interested, and then something happened. KD says no, or they decided to give it more time. Something happened, and they pulled back. But yeah, we almost had it. We almost had a reunion of 2017. I think that's just my perception after hearing what I've been told.
Well, I think it would have worked. I think this works better. And I do think, I was joking with the staff today when I was in college, and you'd go out drinking with one of the football players, one of the big tough football players that always gave you more courage, you know.
Absolutely.
And I think Jimmy Butler's like a more talented Draymond, where he just gives everybody a little more courage. Everybody's a little more aggressive because you don't want to let down Jimmy.
Facts.
There's just certain guys that are kind of badass guys. Like you just don't want to let them down. Charles Oakley always had that. Like you just play a little harder and a little more physical because Jimmy's got your back. He's the bouncer a little bit. So I mean, KD, I don't think would have brought quite the energy or the physicality but I think KD would have given you points. So, and I kind of feel like I've seen that. You know, it's really interesting. I think Steve Kerr's really smart. Um, and he signed an extension. When you go get Jimmy Butler, how much say does Steph have? I mean, Kerr has so much respect for him, and he should. It is because I still think LeBron got a heads up on Luka. I think he's been thinking about that since Mark Cuban sold the team. I thought LeBron sniffed around with Steph 2 years ago. He was interested in Yoka. Denver said no thanks. And I think once Cuban sold the Mavericks, he started circling, sending messages, back channeling to Luka. And I think he's been on this thing. Steph is not as calculated as LeBron. But to me, do you think Steph said, Steve, was it Lacob or did Steph have a say in
I,
Jimmy?
I think Steph definitely had to say, like, it's him and Mike Dunleavy. Dunleavy's the one who made it happen. It's Mike Dunleavy because they oddly enough played together in Chicago. This is like the oddest like buddy cop movie,
Yes.
right? Like Mike Dunleavy.
I covered Dunleavy in high school, a Jesuit
Yes,
in
that's
Portland.
yeah, absolutely. So the oddest buddy cop movie is who knew Dunleavy and Jimmy Butler would be tight and make this happen, right? But Steph was first off the top. Steph was like, "We absolutely have to do something. Like, we're not running this back. Like, I'm gonna have a problem with that." And once
Yeah.
Steve comes out with a mic in his face that says, "We got to do something. This is not working." Like
Yeah.
that's ball game. The question at that point was what? What do you do? So I'm from what I was told, there's a conversation. Jimmy's excitement, especially once he got the contract extension, helps a lot. The only question that I ever heard in doing all the interviews and asking question was, which Jimmy were you getting? Like that's the only
Right.
question. I think everybody understood who Jimmy was, and I do think Steph and Draymond, because they're both up in age, they're like, man, I need somebody for the playoffs, right? That's the big deal, and playoff Jimmy is the thing they want. They want playoff Jimmy, so he definitely was in the mix. I just think they needed to know they were gonna get Jimmy Butler, not the guy that they've been hearing warring with Pat Riley. That was the thing. Once they got that, I feel like that was enough for Steph. He just wanted something that he's been begging for
Yep.
something for at least 2 years now.
Sorry to interrupt this great video, but please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you. Now back to the video. And listen, Kuminga was a good draft pick. Pods, Moody, they've got players. Bring Kuminga back. They've got some depth. I've said this. I think OKC would be a little bit privately terrified to face Butler and Steph and Draymond and Kuminga
And
and
if they
Pods and
aren't, their
Kerr.
fans would be
That
terrified because them dudes have been in that building before.
Yep. How is Luka LeBron? You wrote an article on the suffering Maverick fans. I mean, Kyrie gets hurt because they press him into more minutes. I mean, that's one of the unintended liabilities of that trade is when Luka left, you only had one real playmaker. I like Spencer Dinwiddie, but he's not the playmaker of Luka, obviously. So now Kyrie's got to play more minutes, have the ball more, stay on the floor more. And at the end, his body, he's a small player. He's been hurt before. I think some of it is just it was just too taxing on his body. I'll get to that in a second. How do you view Luka and LeBron? How is that viewed in the Bay Area?
A massive problem. That's what it's viewed. It's where are the Lakers? Let's try to avoid that until the West Finals, right? In the same way,
Yeah.
Oklahoma City's like, I don't think Oklahoma City is scared of the Warriors. They're just like, we just rather have them in the West Finals if we're gonna face them. Like, let's not do it in the first round. So, I mean, the
Right.
Lakers were already a problem. A big part of that is LeBron. Like, they don't have anybody
Yeah.
to guard LeBron. Like, ever since Iguodala, you know, declined from his premium self where he could do it. Like you could throw Draymond on him, but you need Draymond in the back. They just haven't had anybody. Wiggins was okay at it, but it's still LeBron. Now you had another guy. It's basically another guy who ball handling, big bodied person who's difficult to match up with. So now the Lakers have two of the guys that the Warriors have a hard time guarding. Now, if they had one Wiggins, it'd
Yep.
be fine, right? If they had Wiggins with Butler, it'd be a little bit better. But now you're asking Kuminga to do it. You're asking Moses Moody to do it. You're also asking 35-year-old Jimmy Butler to do it, right? And that's
Yeah.
that's a lot. So that's why that's such a difficult matchup. The Lakers are a difficult matchup for that reason. Denver's a difficult matchup because of Jokic, right? As he is with everybody, but the Warriors just don't have size. So to me, the
Yeah.
Lakers have become a team that like they probably want to avoid. Everybody else, I don't think they're worried about at all. But I think Lakers,
Yeah.
the Lakers, plus they can score. Like they can score
Yes.
like an insane amount of points, even though they're surprisingly good on defense right now. I don't know how much that's gonna hold, especially in a matchup setting where you can just attack Luka and Reeves when it's calculated right. We're like game 3, we're going at Luka every time. So I don't know how that holds up, but they're getting 125. Like that's happening. So
Yep.
they're a problem. Like you can look at them in the Bay. People in the Bay know the Lakers are a problem, and you probably want to stay out of that.
Well, And they also have 3 play initiators because Austin Reeves, Luka, and LeBron can all run
And
the
all of
offense.
them draw
And they
fouls.
all of them draw fouls. Like they
Yes.
really do. So when Dallas, they have Kyrie now. That's it. Now they have size down in Dallas. They have a good rotational when they're healthy, Lively,
Gafford, Daniel Gafford.
obviously
Yeah.
Anthony Davis, Gafford. Yeah, they got real size. They got great center rotation, but they don't have any. Kyrie's it, and opening up a play. So the Lakers have a lot of players who can initiate, get their own shot. And I'll tell you, JJ Redick, it's hard, it's funny, Marcus. So I've watched so much football in my life. Obviously, a good baseball manager, they say, can win you 4 games a year. It's mostly GM,
Absolutely.
payroll, pitching. And in football, you can see it's the coaching sport. It really matters. Urban Meyer goes to a college program. He can add 6 wins a year. Bill Parcells did that. McVay's obviously, he's just beating people on Sunday, schematically. Basketball's different because the players control the league, and very rarely is Steve Kerr, slow down, I've got to play for you. That's what they're doing at Tom Izzo at Michigan State. That's not the NBA. So what I tend to watch, how you close a game and how you open a game. So closing a game, there is coaching. Opening a game, there is a game plan, right? Guys are sitting around watching. You don't have a lot of prep time in the NBA. You talk about it at shoot around. You do about 10 minutes before the game. You have sort of a mission to get on front and use some matchup advantages. The Lakers start first 6 minutes of these games, Marcus, they are so good early. And they really are. Now, by the way, Steve Kerr was always the great coach out of half.
Absolutely.
He was the great third quarter coach. What are you hearing around the league on Redick when you talk to people? I know you cover the Warriors, but I just think you can see his excellence early and late in
I think
games.
Defensively is the part you hear where people are saying like, wow, they're actually really good defensively. And the Lakers have places to go to attack. Like you could attack Austin Reeves. You could attack LeBron, right? LeBron's been known to loaf on defense, but somehow they've managed to be good on defense, which is they add Luka and get better on defense. And to me, that like the adjustment piece too, like how fast can you shift philosophies? Do you have to stay on what like game plan you said at the beginning? Do you have to stay on that because you said it at the beginning and hope it works? Or can you shift? Are your guys prepared to shift? That's what we're seeing from the Lakers that makes you be like, hey, how does JJ know what he's doing already? Like when you talk to people, they're like, you know what, the Lakers defense is pretty good. Like, and then they lose AD and somehow manage to still get really good defensively. It's surprising people. Like I don't think, obviously we thought he was like a LeBron plant. We thought he was like basically like podcast nepotism, if there's such a thing, right? Like it's like, but he's actually pretty good. Like he knows what he's doing. Now we'll see like as you said, it's the management of personalities in the long run, right? It's how you deal with this stuff. But he's got like the Dorian Finney-Smith, Rui Hachimura, right? Jackson Hayes. He's got these players who number one are gonna do what he says, and number two, they're trying to fight for a spot in the league, right? So they can go out and execute, right? You're seeing him work it's these exterior pieces that are doing so well. That's the part where JJ's kind of showing his like ability. He knows when to go with Rui, when to switch out, when to go big. Like Jackson Hayes is not this good. I don't care. Like I don't know what's happening, but they're supposed to be done. You lose Anthony Davis, and Anthony Davis wanted a big. Remember that was the thing. The Lakers need a big. They don't get the big, and they get rid of Anthony Davis, and somehow they're still managing. So if it weren't for what's happening in Detroit and JB Bickerstaff, we be talking about JJ as coach of the year, which is kind of insane because they were just doing a podcast like a year ago.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some Jason Kidd came out pretty early. Steve Nash in Brooklyn was a bit of a
Colin,
mess.
Would you like to be an assistant coach who's been on the bench for 15 years, wait for your shot, watching these dudes walk in?
Oh, yeah. Who's scoring big in the NBA this season? You are. All the new ways to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Slams, dishing the ball, cleaning the glass, get behind your favorite players, prop bets you can make on DraftKings. It's fun. The home of NBA player props. If you're ready to place your first bet, make it really simple. Pick how many points your favorite player is going to score. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook. They have an app. Download it. Make your pick. If you're a first timer, here's something special. New DraftKings customers, all you have to do is bet $5 to get 150 in bonus bets instantly. So take it to the rack with DraftKings Sportsbook. Every point counts. Download their app. Takes 90 seconds. Use the code Colin, COLIN, to get 150 bones in bonus bets. Betting just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. But, there is something to be said. JJ was on broadcasts and podcasts, and he sounded very erudite.
17 years in the league. Yeah, that matters.
Yeah, he Jason Kidd, similarly. These guys
Steve
around
Kerr,
basketball have got intuitive feel for it. So you wrote that article on the suffering Mavs fans. Do you think when Cuban sold the team, Mark has a pretty good sense of business, timing, and exit strategy. Why do you think Cuban sold? I tend to think everything Mark is very good at seeing around corners. I can disagree with him sometimes on loving NFTs and Bitcoin or politics or whatever it is. But it just feels like Cuban sold the team, and it hasn't felt the same since he sold it.
The fact, like when he sold it, I thought, is this a Vegas move? You sell it to the Vegas billionaire, the Adelson family, right? The wife of the famous, Vegas casino guy, the one who got fleeced by Mark Davis, oddly enough, for the Raiders.
Yeah.
But I thought, is this a Vegas move? And one of the things that I've learned from Joe Lacob and the whole A's debacle, because Oakland has lost its teams, and it's all boils down to you got to be ready to spend $1.5 to $2 billion on a stadium. You just have to be able to do that. And if you're not ready to do that, now you're relying on your local municipality to come up with the money. And I'm thinking Cuban saw, do I want to spend a $2 billion stadium or cash out and get my billions? Right? It's the opposite move of what John Fisher did with the A's. Sell the team and get billions, or no, now he's playing in like a high school stadium in Sacramento because they don't want to sell. Like that's what I thought. I don't think at any point he thought Luka was going to be traded. You know why? You know why he didn't think that?
Right.
Because you don't trade Luka ever.
Right.
At least you don't do it at 25 years old, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if Cuban knew that it's going to be tough to get the stadium we need. Because remember, remember when he bought that team and he was right. It was like, oh, they got the new fancy the lockers and they treat the players top notch. Like you got to be top notch now, and that's $2 billion. That's $2 billion. You just got to have $2 billion. I think he saw it might be tough to get a stadium. Let me sell it. Let me take the profit instead of digging a bigger hole. And if that means the team goes to Vegas, like that, it's off my hands, so to speak. That's the best I can think of. But I agree with you 1,000,000%. Cuban saw this 7 steps away. Like he was on it.
Well, I'll throw my LeBron theory at you. LeBron has always avoided a mess. So he leaves Cleveland. He plays in the Olympics, and he's like, man, I got to play with good players. Dan Snyder can't get me. He goes to Miami for finals. Wade and Bosch, especially Wade, is struggling to play back-to-backs. He bails. He's right. He goes to Cleveland, gets a title. Kyrie's like, I don't want to be here. We were maxed out. He leaves. A second time. This time everybody's good with it. He goes to the Lakers. People loved Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma. He didn't. He got rid of him. Brings in AD. AD was great. And I believe LeBron realized as he aged about 2 years ago that he could not be on every possession, every night, the lead initiator. And Austin Reeves is more of a 3 or a 4 than a 2. And so I think he was looking for Steph 2 years ago.
No question.
And he made overtures and went back channels with Steph, and Steph's like, man, I'm good here. And then I think he
And
was
I think
interested
it
in
happened to be
Jokic.
like, hey, do you want to come here instead? I think that was part of the
That's
conversation. How
right.
about LeBron? You could come
Yep.
here.
And then he knew Jokic could also make the game easier for him. Denver's not interested. And I think when Cuban sold the Mavericks, I think LeBron went back channels, thought to himself, here's the moment. I'm going to make sure he knows I like him a lot. I think eventually he made it known upstairs, guys, I'm getting older. I cannot play 40 minutes. I love AD to death, but I can't be the play initiator every damn time down the floor. I can't do it. I mean, there are times now when you watch him. Now Austin Reeves hasn't played in a couple games. When Luka and Austin are there together, I mean, it's like got a
Yeah, he's
smile on
chilling.
his face. He's floating in the wing.
And he's earned that, by the
And by the
way.
way,
He's
he's
earned
got
the right to be there. Yeah, absolutely.
absolutely. But I do think I think, and this is not a criticism. I think LeBron's the smartest player in league history, arguably in a short list. I think he's calculated. And the idea that he just woke up one day and went, well, what do you know? We got Luka, the perfect teammate.
Yeah,
I don't buy that.
I'm not buying it.
I mean, Marcus, I'm not a tinfoil hat guy, but LeBron is too smart. He's too much of a businessman. I think he let everybody know Luka is the target. You think I'm nuts?
I don't. I just wonder how you keep that quiet. Because one thing Brian hasn't been great at is keeping all this stuff quiet. So I Occam's razor come into play. What's more likely, that LeBron pulled this from behind the string, which I'm not saying is off the table, or Nico Harrison was like, I got the move that's gonna make me a legend. I don't know. They're both
Yeah.
kind of wild. Did he really just do this though? Did Nico just decide, you know what? I'm gonna call Rob Pelinka. We're gonna make this happen. That's almost as
No, I don't.
crazy.
Well, so I had this discussion 2 nights ago at dinner with a friend. I said, the star players in the last CBA, they're getting like outrageous money. And I have no problem with it, but they're making significantly more than Patrick
Oh
Mahomes.
yeah.
And I think it's different. I think billionaires have no problem writing $40 million annual checks. But Marcus, when that check is $75 million annually,
At
okay, I'm
350,
looking at
yeah.
everything. I'm looking at everything. I'm looking at your injuries. I'm looking at your as a teammate.
Your beverage
Can I
choices.
ask some things in the community? Yep. And I think that ownership group said, this is back-to-back camps he's missed. He's been hurt since Christmas. He's doesn't always do he leaves the minute the season's over. He doesn't do much off season. I think ownership made it clear we're
Very,
not sure if we're going to
yeah,
350
very
large on
clear though,
this.
right? Because I don't think if they weren't thinking that way, Nico couldn't do it, right? They had to be thinking that way.
The tr-
The question is
right.
like the same investigation they do for like to see if he's worth the 75 million a year. That investigation might at some point tell them, yeah, he might actually be worth it still, right? Like, did their investigation not include this part? Like, hey, I wonder if we're gonna have to give money back for season tickets if we do this. Like, did they stop the
Right.
investigation at Luca, or did they analyze? Here's what a magnetic NBA superstar bring the value they bring to a franchise, and they decided it was less than 350. What is Luca worth to the Mavs? Like that's the part I don't understand. I agree with you. They're probably like, yeah, 350 is a lot. Like that might be too much. But like if you analyze Steph Curry, like what's his value to the Warriors? Like you
Oh
see,
God.
like that's the part of like Luca is 25. You got him 10 more years. What's the value of that? Is it worth the 345?
Well, also though, Steph is a
No
domestic
question.
product. Steph has multiple
And
titles. He's incredibly likable,
he is a
Mr.
perfect face of
Community.
franchise. Absolutely. Perfect.
And whereas Luca's, little international, hookah bars, loves his beverages, leaves the city the minute the season's over. Like and by the way, really not in great shape. Although I'll say this, he looks better in the last 10 days than he did in Dallas. I mean, he's gotten
Yeah.
tighter. It's the LA lifestyle.
And the shape thing is not nothing because they didn't win a championship partly because of it. Like
Yeah, he was that
He was
he was
done. He
gassed
was
at the
done.
end. He
Yeah,
was
absolutely.
done.
So that's not so to like I understand that to say, hey, we got to the finals, and part of the reason we didn't win is because our best player was done. And the response to that is, I'm still not gonna get in shape. That's probably a little bit troubling because the guys we know who are in the position Luka is, if that happens, they're coming back in shape. They're like, I'm never feeling that again, right? Like we're going to work out like
Right.
crazy. And I'm coming back, you gonna have to question me about PEDs. That's how much shape I'm gonna be in after getting sunned by Jaylen Brown in the NBA finals, right? So the fact that his response was to be the same guy, I can see that being troubling. Still, Colin, like he's Luca. Like
Yeah.
at some point the receipts
Yeah.
just
No,
gotta
it's
matter more. Like,
well. I said I wouldn't have made the deal, but if you would have been able to corral three
that's
first
the
round
thing.
picks, AD and Austin Reeves, then I wouldn't have done it. But I'd
A
sleep on
bigger
that,
bounty. Yes.
considering yeah, three first, AD and Austin Reeves, because Austin then can be a number two play initiator to Kyrie Irving. So Kyrie doesn't have to do that to me is such a it's just bad strategy. Spencer Dinwiddie's not going to be able to do that on a regular basis. So if I were to get another, Austin's averaging
Yeah.
18 a
No.
game. He can play, he can be a
Absolutely.
playmaker, three first, and the best defensive player arguable in the league.
Yeah,
I'd sleep on
absolutely.
that. And again, I wouldn't sleep on it if Luka was in great shape
That,
and Luka didn't have back-to-back calf injuries and missed camp,
then
then I don't. But you get to 75 million annually, I'm going to
like
consider
I
ankle
really need to
turn.
see what's under your
Everything.
fingernails at that point, huh? No, I'm with you. A
um,
better bounty would make this a little bit more palatable. No question. No
yeah.
question.
Marcus Thompson, a writer for The Athletic. So the Lakers go into a really rough sled that they play. I think it's the Knicks. This airs tomorrow morning. They go up against the Knicks, the Celtics, the Bucks. A lot of road games. Denver. It's a rough sled. What's it look like for the Warriors going forward? Where are their challenges?
They're actually in a pretty good place from a schedule perspective. They got Brooklyn. They probably assuming they beat Brooklyn, but let's just assume they beat Brooklyn. They come home for a long like homestand. I mean, they get Milwaukee at home. They got 2 games left against the Lakers, but they're done with Boston. They're done with Cleveland. They're done with the teams that give them problems. So they're sitting actually kind of pretty. They get Toronto and Phoenix. Their schedule is very doable. Like it's very they're in a good place. Like they're not like cupcake games. There's not a lot of Charlottes, but it's a lot of those teams they should beat. The Sacramentos, right? The San Antonios without Wimby.
What did you make in New York watching them? What do you make of the Knicks?
Knicks are just disappointing, man. I'm gonna give a pass because Towns wasn't out there, but for a team that can't shoot threes, they sure are jack a lot. But I don't like their will at the end, and I wonder if Thibodeau has worn them down. They they
Yeah,
their will on the defensive end has its limit. It
it's
has its
not.
limit. You can break it.
No, it can't just be
Yeah,
Hartenstein. They're just
yeah.
not as good.
You can break them defensively, and that's going to be troubling. Now, again, playoff basketball is different. It's half court to half court. It's matchup based. But I'm wondering, what are their legs like? Like, what is their psyche like after what is this year 4 of Tibbs? And I don't know. It's Guy Santos. It was Guy Santos cooking. Like we're not talking about like Steph was cool. Like Jimmy Butler was okay, but they're getting outworked by guys who should be in the G League. Their will just breaks
Yeah,
sometimes. Like if you watch the Knicks,
yeah.
they just decide to give up, and then it's like Brunson go save us. So I don't. I mean, obviously Boston and Cleveland are at the top, but I'll tell you this: if I'm
Yeah.
New York, I don't want them Pistons in the first round. I'll tell you that much. You don't want to see the Pistons in the first round. That young, hungry team full of athletes who willing to fight. Yeah, nah, I don't know if they have the will. So again, they didn't have Town, so that's something. But I'm 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 worried about the Knicks team. I'm not quite Stephen A. Smith level worried, but I'm worried about the Knicks team.
Well, I've watched them play Boston twice, and I've watched one of the
It's
Cleveland
it's a
games, and they
slaughter.
attack Carl Anthony Towns in the
I
pick
don't
and roll. I mean, they just attack them.
I don't know. Towns is not going to solve this problem in the playoffs. They might
No.
be able to score more, which will help you against some teams. But if it's like a dogfight,
Oh, Cat's
yeah, no, he's
talented.
great. Yeah,
Yeah,
no
he's
question. He'll
talented.
he'll he'll go out and get you some buckets in the playoffs, and he'll create some moments. But like this team, if they get either Boston or Cleveland in the second round, I just don't know. And they have to get one of them. They have
They're
to get one
cooked.
of them, right?
They're gonna, yeah, they just don't match.
Just
Cleveland is so effective. Cleveland and Boston are the two best teams in the league. They can defend the rim. They can
they
defend the
can
perimeter.
score.
They've got scoring guards. They've got
They got
scoring
backups who
wings.
could
They're both
score. Yeah, like
efficient. Yeah, yeah. I always say if Derek White is, it's some nights the fifth best player on your team. That is a that there. It's almost like they, with the new taxes and the new ceilings
the
and
second
the way it
aprons and
works in the
yeah.
NBA, all the second apron shit. It's like Boston for about 2 years beat it.
Yes.
They've got a roster that you couldn't
No,
build
they
right
couldn't do it.
now, but they kind of grandfathered it in. And they just got too many good
Yeah, and,
players.
and Cleveland, man, that DeAndre Hunter trade was like unfair. They were already really good. They just got another, and that's the thing about all these guys. Like you got to be able to guard wings. And you look like you just listed like four people on Boston who could guard wings. Cleveland just added another
Yep.
guy. They've got guys who can guard wings. That to me is going to be like I'm not putting Oklahoma City in there yet because I want to see them in the playoffs guard wings or guard the explosive point guard. Like they've got the bodies, they got the stats right. They rank pretty well defensively. Playoffs a different monster. It's just different. It's just
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. And this Cleveland team, you've had Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley. Last year they kind of disappointed us. Oklahoma City feels like
Yeah.
Cleveland last year. Really impressive, but not quite ready to go on the road and give you A++ stuff from role players on the road. I think Cleveland's ready
Yeah.
to do that now. Mobley's better
Yeah,
every
and
year.
and again, they've added the upgrade pieces too. Like they didn't just run it back with the same team, and that's what we're gonna see about OKC. Maybe Shea is just that good where he figured it out. Like he felt it. They lost to Dallas. He went to work and got better. Maybe he's enough, and Jalen Williams is enough next to him. I just want to see it first because experience matters a lot, man. The playoffs are a different monster. Like if they get Jokic,
Yeah.
I love Chet Holmgren. What is he doing with Nikola Jokic? Like that's just gonna be a tough. Like you have to fight. You got to fight out of that series. Jamal Murray shows up, it's over. He don't always show up, but when he does, it's pretty good, right? So that and
Yep.
Russ, you have to fight to get out the West. So I'm curious about how the kind of fight Oklahoma City have. If they got it, they should be in the finals. If not, it's gonna be a long off season for Sam Presti because he's got like a bounty of stuff that it's like, hey, at some point you probably need to cash in all these assets you're so famous for
Yep.
and get something, right? Go
Yep.
go get Giannis. Then if you can't win, like go do something with all that. That's where Luka
Yeah.
should be. I'm like, hey, give me all that stuff for Luka. That's what I'm like.
That's right.
He should be in Oklahoma City with my 7 picks, three young players, and defensive stoppers and all that. If they got to win, otherwise Sam Preston needs to go ahead and cash in that winning ticket he's got or the winning tickets.
Well, I mean, every other NBA draft is, fairly talentless. This past draft, it just there's not a lot there. So, like, you can have all these draft picks, but what you have to do is when you get that every third draft,
When
when
it's
it's
that
really
way,
deep, you got to
yeah.
go all in. And then, I mean, I couldn't tell you the last time we had great back-to-back drafts. That's just not the way it works anymore. You get like a good one, a bad one, a moderate one, a good one. So I think okay. I think Presti's sharp. I worry about Holmgren long term his body, but they got waves of
You want to see
players.
KD back there?
Um, it's interesting. J Mac on my show today. I don't know if it's a very attractive place for KD, but I will say this: I don't know his relationship with Presti. If you're asking me if there's a dude that works, it's Oklahoma City and
Yes.
KD because he doesn't need the ball. He is catch and shoot, and SGA needs the ball. So Yeah, I mean, I'd cash in a lot of chips. That'd be a 2-year experiment, but Jesus, him, Holmgren, SGA, Williams, Jesus, that is a
That's
lot
a
of
lot
buckets.
of buckets. A lot of thin buckets too.
Marcus Thompson.